The world of classic rock fell silent on a quiet Sunday morning in Nashville. At 8 a.m., on the 2nd of November 2025, the news broke that Donna Jean Godchaux McKay, the woman whose voice once soared above the wild improvisations of Grateful Dead, had died at the age of 78. Her family confirmed the news from a live hospice in West Nashville, saying she passed peacefully after a long battle with cancer, surrounded by her son Zion and a handful of close friends. Within minutes, headlines began to ripple through the world's music press. The Associated Press called her the Golden Harmony of the Dead. Rolling Stone wrote, "Her voice softened rock's hardest edges," and social media filled with thousands of messages under the hashtag number Rip Donna Jean. Outside the hospice, fans slowly began to gather. They brought flowers, small speakers, and faded vinyls of Terrapin Station in Europe 72. Someone played Ripple on an acoustic guitar, its gentle chords drifting into the morning air as others sang softly. Let it be known there is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. To them, this wasn't just another farewell, it was the closing note of an era. Donna Jean Godchaux was not merely a backing singer. She was the voice that brought soul to the psychedelic storm, the calm between Jerry Garcia's electric lightning and the thunder of the band. From 1971 to 1979, her harmonies helped define the warmth of Grateful Dead's sound music that refused to die, even when the world changed around it. As the sun rose higher above Nashville, its pale light reflected on the hospice windows, shimmering like stage lights fading after a concert. For many, that glow felt symbolic, the last spotlight on a woman who once carried the weight of 1,000 songs. Bob Weir wrote simply on X, "She made chaos sound beautiful." Phil Lesh added, "She was the balance we didn't know we needed." And across Deadhead forums, fans whispered the same thought. "She's not gone, she just joined the great jam in the sky." Donna Jean Godchaux has left the stage, but for those who ever heard her voice, the echo still lingers, soft and eternal, somewhere between heaven and the hum of a Wurlitzer organ. Long before the bright lights of San Francisco or the endless roar of Grateful Dead crowds, there was the deep, humid stillness of Florence, Alabama. That's where Donna Jean Thatcher was born on the 22nd of August 1947, into a world steeped in gospel, cotton, and the slow rhythm of the American South. Music was not a dream for her, it was simply the air she breathed. Every Sunday, church choirs echoed through the streets, and by the time she was 12, people already whispered about the little girl whose voice could melt stone. In her teenage years, she found herself drawn to the small brick building that would later become a cornerstone of American sound fame studios in nearby Muscle Shoals. It was a place of miracles, a studio where Aretha Franklin discovered her fire, Wilson Pickett found his soul, and Percy Sledge recorded "When a Man Loves a Woman." Donna Jean walked in as a backup singer, nervous but steady, her voice already carrying that southern ache, part prayer, part storm. She sang on countless sessions, often uncredited, blending seamlessly into tracks that would later be called classics. Among them were Elvis Presley's Suspicious Minds and several gospel cuts that defined the Muscle Shoals sound, a fusion of soul, blues, and raw emotion that America couldn't get enough of. Her voice wasn't polished by fame. It was shaped by faith and sweat, by nights spent in studios that smelled of tobacco, tape, and hope. Decades later, she would say in an interview, "We didn't know we were making history, we were just trying to make rent and make it through another song." But that voice, deep, warm, unpretentious, was already writing her destiny. The girl from Alabama didn't know it yet, but the harmonies she recorded in those tiny rooms would one day fill arenas, carry through clouds of incense and psychedelia, and become part of the greatest improvisational band in American history. Her journey from the southern pews to the cosmic stage of Grateful Dead was about to begin, and music would never sound the same again. By the early 1970 seconds, Donna Jean had left behind the smoky rooms of Muscle Shoals for the open promise of California. She wasn't chasing fame, she was chasing freedom, And it was there, amid the haze of music, poetry, and protest, that she met a young pianist named Keith Godchaux. Keith wasn't loud like most musicians around San Francisco. He played the piano as if it were breathing, soft, fluid, spiritual. When they met, it felt less like an introduction and more like a reunion. They fell in love quickly, bound not just by heart, but by harmony. Together, they lived for sound jam sessions, smoky cafes, nights filled with Miles, Davis, gospel, and Bach. Then, in 1971, the phone rang with a call that would change both of their lives forever. Ron Pigpen McKernan, the founding keyboardist of Grateful Dead, was gravely ill. The band needed someone new, someone who could keep up with Jerry Garcia's unpredictable magic. Keith auditioned and got the gig, but he brought something extra to the room. Donna Jean. At first, she only watched from the side, humming quietly during rehearsals. But the band noticed that voice, that effortless soul, and before long, she was handed a microphone. When she sang with them for the first time, it was during playing in the band. Jerry turned around mid-song, eyes wide, smiling like he'd just heard the missing piece of a puzzle. That was the moment she became part of Grateful Dead. From 1,971 to 1,979, Keith and Donna Jean were the heart and lungs of the band's most creative years. Her harmonies brought warmth to the chaos, a human heartbeat inside the psychedelic storm. Songs like Scarlet Begonias, Eyes of the World, and Terrapin Station carried her fingerprints, that subtle lift in the chorus, the note that made the air shimmer. Fans adored her not as the female member, but as a voice that could rise above the madness and make it mean something. Her presence changed the chemistry of the Dead for a brief, beautiful moment. It all felt complete. And yet, as every musician learns, the higher the harmony, the sharper the fall. Behind the lights, the road was long, and love, no matter how strong, would soon be tested by the weight of fame, exhaustion, and silence. Life inside Grateful Dead was a beautiful storm. The band had become a religion, its followers, the Deadheads, a nation of wanderers who lived for the next show, the next jam, the next miracle note. Every night blurred into the next, and Donna Jean found herself standing before tens of thousands of faces lost in music and smoke. The mid-1,970 seconds were both golden and brutal. The band's concerts were legendary 5-hour sets, no set lists, just pure intuition. She once described it as jumping into an ocean without knowing if you can swim. And yet, every night, she dove in again. Behind the scenes, though, exhaustion was setting in. The road never ended. San Francisco, Chicago, Paris, London, back to LA, then again to some forgotten fairground in the middle of America. There were no breaks, no silence, only sound. The lines between life and performance blurred until they were one and the same. Drugs flowed freely, like currency. Some used them to escape, others to create. Donna Jean tried to hold on to clarity, but the chaos swallowed everything. Keith, once gentle and introspective, began to lose himself. The music that had bound them together now carried darker tones, dissonant, unpredictable, sometimes painful. Still, there were moments of grace. On the 8th of May 1977, during the legendary Cornell University concert, Donna's harmonies soared above Scarlet Begonias, Is Greater Than Fire on the Mountain, blending perfectly with Jerry Garcia's guitar. It was as if her voice lit up the night the Dead at their absolute peak. But after the applause faded, the silence between her and Keith grew louder. The road that had given them everything was now taking it back piece by piece. By 1978, the exhaustion, the distance, and the weight of years on tour began to break them down. And when the music finally paused, they made the hardest decision of all to step away from Grateful Dead. They thought leaving would save them. Instead, it led them toward the darkest chapter of their lives. When the music stopped, silence was unbearable. After leaving Grateful Dead in early 1979, Keith and Donna Jean tried to find peace to make music again, but this time for themselves. They recorded together, played small clubs, and dreamed of a quieter life away from the road. But the damage from years of exhaustion, drugs, and chaos had already settled in. Keith began to fade. The gentle pianist who once anchored the Dead's wildest nights now spent long days withdrawn, fighting the weight of depression. Donna stood by him, trying to hold together what fame had torn apart. She believed music could still heal them. But life had other plans. On a rainy night in July 1980, near Marin County, California, Keith's car skidded off the road. He was rushed to the hospital, but he never woke up. He was only 32. Donna Jean was shattered. One moment, she had been harmonizing with him the next. She was staring into an empty room, a piano bench, a silence that stretched forever. Friends say she stopped speaking for days. At the small memorial service in San Rafael, Jerry Garcia played Stella Blue as the rain fell softly against the chapel windows. Bob Weir sat with his head bowed, and even the air seemed too heavy to breathe. Donna later said, "I didn't know who I was without the music. After Keith died, silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard." She left California soon after. The world that had once embraced her now felt foreign, hollow. She returned home to Alabama, where the church choirs still sang like they did in her childhood. It was there, among familiar voices and sacred hymns, that she slowly began to find her footing again. But the joy was gone. Each song reminded her of the man she'd lost and of a band that had once been her family. For a while, she couldn't bear to listen to Grateful Dead. The music that had given her everything now only reminded her of everything she'd lost. Yet deep inside, a quiet spark remained. Music had taken her through pain before, and somehow, it would find her again. For years after Keith's death, Donna Jean disappeared from the public eye. She stopped touring, stopped recording, and retreated into a world of quiet and prayer. Friends said she attended small gospel gatherings in Alabama, standing in the back, humming softly, never taking the microphone. Her once celebrated voice now lived only in whispers. But time has a strange rhythm. It heals in half notes, not in silence. By the late 1990 seconds, she found music reaching for her again. At first, it came in small ways. Friends asking her to sing at church, then at community concerts, then at a local festival. Each time she said yes, something inside her softened. It was during that rebirth that she met David McKay, a bassist and producer who shared her love for soul and southern warmth. He didn't ask her about the past, he asked her to sing. And when she did, he said it was like hearing sunlight return after years of storm. They fell in love, married, and began to make music together, forming the Donna Jean Godchaux band. In 2014, she released her first studio album in decades, Back Around. Critics didn't just celebrate her return, they celebrated her survival. Rolling Stone wrote, "Donna Jean doesn't chase ghosts, she sings with them." The songs carried the ache of a lifetime, yet they glowed with hope. Her son, Zion Rock Godchaux, had grown into a musician himself, forming the electronic jam duo Boombox. When he spoke of his mother, he said, "She taught me that music isn't about being loud, it's about being real." Donna Jean never sought fame again. She sang for joy, for healing, for gratitude. Her performances became smaller, but her presence grew larger, the mark of someone who had seen both the light and the dark and learned to sing through both. By the time she returned to national stages for tribute shows, audiences didn't just applaud her voice, they applauded her courage. She had lost everything, and yet she came back singing. By the time the calendar turned to 2025, Donna Jean's voice had grown soft, but still carried that same quiet grace that once filled stadiums. She had been battling cancer for years, privately, gently, never with complaint. When doctors told her the fight was nearing its end, she chose to spend her final days in Nashville, the city she called the meeting point of gospel and rock and roll. Her room at a live hospice was small but full of light. On the nightstand sat two framed photos, one of Keith at the piano and another of Jerry Garcia smiling backstage. both faded by time but glowing with memory. Nurses said she kept a small speaker by her bed, quietly playing Ripple and Stella Blue on repeat. When asked why, she smiled and whispered, "Because those songs never die." Her son Zion Rock Godchaux stayed with her through every night. Sometimes he would sit by the window, strumming his guitar while she rested, humming along faintly. The hospice staff often paused by the door, listening, mother and son, sharing a duet that needed no words. In her final morning, November 2, the sky above Nashville was pale and golden. A nurse described the light as soft, like stage lamps. After a show, Donna Jean asked her son to play Ripple one last time. He did slowly, tenderly, and she mouthed the lyrics, barely audible. "Let it be known there is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men." At 7:18 a.m., she took her final breath. The room fell completely still. A nurse later told people, "It was peaceful. There was music in the air, and then just silence." Outside, the city was waking up. The light streaming through the hospice window hit her bedside table, glinting off the photo of Keith. For a moment, it looked like he was smiling at her, and in that light, that final golden glow, it felt as though the music had simply changed rooms. In the days following her passing, tributes poured in from every corner of the world. From the old deadheads who had followed the band from show to show, to young artists who had only discovered her voice through vinyl, Crackle, and YouTube clips, everyone had something to say about the woman who made rock music feel like a prayer. Bob Weir posted a photo of her from 1977, smiling mid-song, with the caption, "She made chaos sound like grace." Phil Lesh wrote, "She was our compass, our calm in the storm." And on dead.net, fans lit virtual candles, each flicker a small thank you for the years she gave them. For nearly a decade, Donna Jean's voice had been the soul of Grateful Dead's golden era, those years when improvisation became communion, when music wasn't just sound but shared breath. Her harmonies on Scarlet Begonias, Eyes of the World, and Terrapin Station still shimmer like sunlight through smoke. Decades later, she was proof that a single voice could soften even the loudest storm. In 1994, when Grateful Dead was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Donna stood on stage beside her bandmates, quiet, humble, radiant. She didn't give a speech, only said, "I never planned any of this. I just sang." Those words would become her legacy, pure, unpretentious, and eternal. To the music world, she remains a bridge between Southern soul and California psychedelia, between gospel and guitar solos, between sorrow and joy. Her influence can still be heard in artists who value honesty over perfection, emotion over volume. And somewhere, beyond the reach of microphones and applause, perhaps she is singing again with Keith at the piano, Jerry Garcia on guitar, and an endless crowd of stars above her. Donna Jean Godchaux's final act wasn't silence. It was the echo she left behind, a reminder that even when the lights fade, the music keeps playing. If her voice ever moved you, let it move you once more. Leave a light in her memory, and remember her not for the songs she sang, but for the peace she left behind.